Welcome to BL Story Tender. Please hit subscribe. Thank you very much. Let the story begin. Chapter 1. The Contract. Ethan Cole did not run because he was afraid. He ran because he finally understood that staying meant losing everything. His fingers reached the cold metal handle of the penthouse door. For one brief second, he believed he could leave. Then a quiet voice behind him broke that illusion. "You are not leaving," Sebastian Hale said. His tone was calm and certain, as if the choice had never belonged to Ethan. Ethan froze. His breath caught in his throat. The small weight in his arms shifted. One child stirred, then another. Within seconds, all four began to whimper. Their soft cries filled the massive, silent room. It sounded like a signal, and somehow Sebastian heard it instantly. He was already moving, already close, too fast, too precise. He closed the distance without hesitation. His presence filled the space before he even reached them. But he did not look at Ethan. His eyes went straight to the children. Sharp, focused, intense. Ethan's chest tightened. He pulled them closer to his body. Instinct rose stronger than logic. Something about this was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. The luxury, the silence, the way every door locked without a key, the way every hallway seemed to lead nowhere. This place was not a home. It was a system, controlled space, a cage that did not need bars. "They are reacting," Sebastian said quietly. His voice was low, controlled, but something underneath it felt tight, almost expectant. Ethan shook his head. He stepped back, even though he knew it would not help. "They are just babies," he said. He forced the words out. He needed them to be true. Sebastian's eyes flickered. Just for a moment. That was enough. The truth broke through. Sebastian did not see them as just children. He saw them as something else. Something important. Something planned. Ethan's mind rushed back to the beginning. The contract. The agreement. A simple deal. One child. That was all it was supposed to be. One clean arrangement. No complications. No attachments. No future. But now he stood here holding for lives. For impossible lives that should not exist. For answers to a question he never asked. "You said one," Ethan whispered. His voice trembled despite his effort to stay calm. Sebastian finally looked at him. Fully this time. His expression revealed nothing. His silence carried weight. Heavy and deliberate. That silence was the answer. Ethan felt it immediately. This had never been simple. It had never been accidental. And it was never something he could walk away from. "I said what you needed to hear," Sebastian replied. His tone remained even. But the meaning behind it was final. Like a door closing. Ethan felt something inside him crack. Not fear. Not yet. Something colder. The realization that he had never been in control. Not then. Not now. And not even in this moment. Behind him, the door made a soft clicking sound. It locked automatically. Ethan did not touch it. No one did. The system responded on its own. In his arms, the children suddenly went quiet. All of them, at the same time. The silence felt heavier than their cries. It was unnatural. Felt like they were listening. Like they understood something he did not. Sebastian's gaze darkened slightly. He stepped closer. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "You see it now," he said. It was not a question. "You are not the one who decides when this ends." Ethan did not answer. He could not. The silence pressed in around him, thick and suffocating, as if the walls themselves were listening. Sebastian stepped past him without asking, his attention already shifting back to the children. "Bring them," he said, not as a request, but as a simple expectation. Ethan hesitated for half a second. That was all it took. The lights along the hallway brightened automatically, one after another, guiding a path deeper into the penthouse. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had never seen that before. Not like this. Not triggered so precisely. Slowly, with no real choice, he followed. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Smooth white walls. No windows. No decoration. Just clean, controlled space that felt more like a facility than a home. Sebastian walked ahead with steady steps. He did not look back. He did not need to. He knew Ethan would follow. At the end of the hall, a door slid open before they reached it. No handle. No sound except a soft mechanical shift. Inside was a room Ethan had never entered. He knew that instantly. The air felt different. Cooler. Sterile. Rows of screens lined one wall, each one glowing with soft data streams. Numbers. Graphs. Moving lines that meant nothing to Ethan but clearly meant everything to someone else. In the center of the room stood a low platform, surrounded by equipment he could not name. "Sit," Sebastian said. Ethan did not move. "What is this place?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Sebastian turned slowly. For a moment, something unreadable passed through his eyes. Then it was gone. "This is where I make sure they stay stable," he replied. The word stable sent a chill through Ethan's body. He tightened his hold on the children. One of them stirred again, a soft sound escaping his lips. Sebastian stepped closer, his gaze locking onto that child. Not with warmth, not with distance either. Something in between. Something calculated. "They respond to changes," Sebastian continued. "Environment, presence, stress." Ethan's heart began to pound. "They are babies," he repeated, more forcefully this time. "They are not some kind of system." Sebastian did not argue. He simply reached toward one of the screens. With a single motion, it came to life, displaying 4 separate panels. Each panel showed a small moving line. Each line matched the rhythm of a heartbeat. Ethan stared. "That is them," Sebastian said quietly. "All 4. Ethan's breath caught again. The lines did not move the same way. One was steady. One spiked sharply, then dropped. One moved slower than the others. And the last line pulsed in a pattern Ethan could not understand. Not regular. Not random. Something else. "This is not possible," Ethan whispered. Sebastian's gaze shifted to him again. "That is what makes them valuable." The word hit harder than anything else. Valuable. Not loved. Not protected. Measured. Ethan took a step back. His mind raced. This was never about a child. Not even about 4 children. This was something else entirely. Something planned long before he signed anything. "You knew," Ethan said slowly. "You knew this would happen." For the first time, Sebastian did not answer immediately. That silence said everything. Ethan felt it settle deep in his chest. Cold. Heavy. Real. The children shifted again in his arms. This time, all 4 at once. The screens reacted instantly. Every line spiked. Every signal changed. A sharp tone filled the room. Low but urgent. Sebastian moved fast. Faster than before. Not calm anymore. Focused. Intense. "Stay still," he ordered. Ethan froze on instinct. The tone continued for a few seconds. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The lines on the screens returned to their previous patterns. The room fell silent again. Sebastian exhaled slowly. It was controlled but not completely steady. Ethan noticed that, and in that moment, something shifted inside him. For the first time, he saw it clearly. Sebastian was not just controlling this situation. He was depending on it. Depending on them. Depending on Ethan. Sebastian turned back toward him. His voice was lower now. More measured. "You cannot leave," he said. "Not a threat this time. A fact." Ethan looked down at the children. Then back at the screens. Then at the man standing in front of him. The realization settled in fully. This was not a home. This was not a contract. This was something designed. And he was at the center of it. Whether he wanted to be or not. Ethan did not move for a long time after Sebastian's words settled into the silence. The screens continued their quiet rhythm behind him. Each pulse a reminder that nothing in this place was normal. He adjusted the children carefully in his arms, feeling their warmth, their small breaths against his chest, grounding himself in something real. "Then explain it," Ethan said finally. His voice was steady now, sharper than before. If I cannot leave, then tell me why. Sebastian studied him for a moment. Not dismissive, not impatient, measuring, as if deciding how much truth Ethan was allowed to carry. You were selected, Sebastian said. The words were simple. Too simple. Ethan frowned. Selected for what? Sebastian turned back to the screens. Another panel appeared with a soft movement. Lines of data scrolled across it. Names were not listed, only codes, repeated patterns. Ethan stepped closer despite himself. His eyes caught one label that stood out from the rest. Subject E17. His breath hitched slightly. That is not my name, Ethan said quietly. No, Sebastian replied. It is not. The calm in his voice made it worse. Ethan felt a slow, creeping chill move through him. You said this was a contract, he continued. You said it was one child, one agreement. That was it. Sebastian did not deny it. That is what you agreed to, he said. That is not the same as what this is. Ethan's grip tightened around the children. One of them shifted again, a soft sound escaping as if reacting to the tension in the room. Ethan lowered his voice instinctively. Then what is this? He asked. Sebastian finally faced him fully again. There was no hesitation now. A controlled development program, he said. Ethan stared at him, trying to process the words. They felt clinical, detached, like something that did not belong to real life. You mean an experiment, Ethan said. Sebastian did not correct him. That was enough. Ethan let out a slow breath, but it did nothing to steady him. His thoughts began to connect in ways he did not want them to. The contract, the single child, the sudden change, the way the doctors never gave clear answers, the way everything had moved too smoothly, too quickly. You knew from the beginning, Ethan said. Not everything, Sebastian answered. But enough. Ethan shook his head. No, that is not possible. No one could plan something like this. His voice rose slightly before he forced it back down, careful not to disturb the children further. Sebastian's expression remained calm, but his eyes held something deeper now. You are focusing on the wrong part, he said. This was never about controlling the outcome completely. It was about creating the conditions for something new to happen. Ethan felt that statement settle heavily in his mind. Conditions, not guarantees. That meant risk. That meant failure. That meant he had never been safe. And if something went wrong, Ethan asked slowly, what would you have done? Sebastian did not answer right away. That silence stretched just long enough to say everything Ethan needed to hear. Ethan looked down at the children again. For small lives, for unknown futures. You would have replaced me, he said quietly. Sebastian's gaze shifted, not confirming, not denying. That was answer enough. Ethan swallowed hard. The room suddenly felt colder. Why me? He asked. This time, Sebastian did not look away. Because you were the only one who met every condition, he said. Ethan frowned. What conditions? Sebastian stepped closer, stopping just short of him. Genetic compatibility, stability under pressure, response to pheromone exposure, and something else. Ethan's heart beat faster. What else? Sebastian's voice lowered slightly. Resilience. Ethan let out a quiet, disbelieving breath. You are talking about me like I am not even a person. Sebastian held his gaze. You are more than that, he said. The words sounded almost sincere. That made them worse. Ethan's chest tightened. And them? He asked, nodding toward the children. What are they? Sebastian's eyes moved to them again. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not warmth. Not exactly. But something less controlled. They are the result, he said. Ethan felt the weight of that answer settle in completely. Not a family. Not an accident. A result. The children stirred again, softer this time. One of them opened his eyes briefly, just for a second. Ethan caught it. A small detail, but enough to send a strange feeling through him. Something about that gaze felt aware. Ethan quickly looked away, telling himself it meant nothing. They were infants. That was all. But as he lifted his head again, he noticed Sebastian watching the same child. Not with curiosity, with focus, as if he had seen it too. Neither of them spoke. The silence returned. But it was different now. Heavier. Because the truth was no longer hidden. And Ethan finally understood one thing clearly. This had never been about giving life. It had always been about creating something that should not exist. Chapter 2: The Four Heirs. Ethan did not realize when he started shaking. It was subtle at first, just a slight tension in his arms as he held the children closer. But the longer he stood in that room, surrounded by screens and silent data, the harder it became to ignore. This was never about one child, he said slowly. His voice sounded distant, even to himself. Sebastian did not respond immediately. He simply watched. That was enough. Ethan let out a quiet breath, but it did nothing to steady him. His eyes moved back to the screens. For separate panels. For separate signals. For lives that should not exist. They told me it was a normal process, Ethan continued. They said everything was stable. His mind replayed the memory in fragments. White walls. Soft voices. Reassuring smiles that now felt rehearsed. Every checkup. Every report. They said there was only one. Sebastian stepped closer to the console. Another set of data appeared with a smooth motion. Because that is what the system showed, he said. Ethan turned sharply. System, he repeated. You mean you were monitoring everything? Of course, Sebastian replied. There was no hesitation. No apology. From the beginning, the words landed hard. Ethan felt them settle deep in his chest. Then you knew, he said. You knew something was wrong. Sebastian's gaze shifted briefly. Not avoidance. Calculation. We knew there was a deviation, he said. We did not know the full extent. Ethan let out a short, hollow laugh. A deviation, he repeated. You call for children a deviation. One of the infants stirred in his arms, reacting to the tension in his voice. Ethan immediately softened, adjusting his hold, his instinct overriding everything else. Sebastian watched that small moment carefully. Then his attention returned to the screens. The initial scans showed a single development pattern, he explained. One stable signal. Consistent growth. Ethan listened, but every word made it worse. Then what changed? He asked. Sebastian tapped the screen. The display shifted again. Now it showed a timeline. A gradual split. One line becoming 2, then 3, then 4. Ethan stared at it, unable to look away. This began earlier than expected, Sebastian said, before any external signs. Ethan shook his head. That is not possible, he said. They would have seen it. Not with the parameters they were using, Sebastian replied. They were not looking for this. Ethan's grip tightened again. The children shifted slightly, their movements small but synchronized in a way that made his chest tighten. So they missed it, Ethan said. Or you let them miss it. Sebastian did not answer right away. That silence said more than anything else. Ethan felt anger rise, sharp and sudden. You let it happen, he said. You watched it happen. We observed, Sebastian corrected calmly. There is a difference. Ethan stared at him. Not to me. The room fell quiet again. Only the faint hum of the equipment filled the space. Ethan looked down at the children. For small faces, peaceful, unaware of any of this. They were never supposed to exist, he said softly. Sebastian's expression shifted slightly. Not denial, not agreement, something more complex. They were not predicted, he said. That is not the same thing. Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment. That distinction meant nothing to him. When he opened them again, his gaze hardened. And now, he said, you are treating them like results. Sebastian did not look away. They are more than that, he said. But they are also the most important outcome this program has ever produced. The words settled heavily between them. Ethan felt something inside him shift again. Not fear this time. Not confusion. Something clearer. "They are not yours," he said quietly. Sebastian's eyes darkened slightly. Not anger. Something deeper. "They are connected to me," he replied. Ethan shook his head. "That does not give you the right." Sebastian took a step closer. Not aggressive. Not forceful. But deliberate. "This is not about rights," he said. "This is about necessity." Ethan met his gaze without backing down. "Then explain this," he said. "Why did none of them show up on the scans the way they should have?" Sebastian paused for a fraction of a second. Then he reached toward the screen again. One of the panels expanded, showing a detailed pattern Ethan could not fully understand. But one thing stood out immediately. The signals were not separate. They overlapped, intertwined in ways that made them impossible to isolate completely. "Because they were never fully separate," Sebastian said quietly. Ethan felt a chill run through him. "What does that mean?" Sebastian's voice dropped slightly. "It means they developed as a system, not as individuals." Ethan looked down at the children again. This time something felt different, subtle, but undeniable, as if they were more connected than he had ever realized. One of them stirred, then another, not randomly, not independently, together. Ethan's breath slowed, his thoughts raced, and for the first time a new fear began to take shape. Not about Sebastian, not about the contract, but about what these 4 lives truly were. Ethan could not stop looking at them. The idea would not leave his mind. Not separate. A system. The words echoed again and again, refusing to settle into anything that made sense. He adjusted his hold carefully, trying to ground himself in something real. They were warm. They were breathing. They were alive. That should have been enough. But it was not. "That is not how children work," Ethan said quietly. His voice was steady, but there was tension beneath it. Sebastian did not argue. He simply watched, his attention moving between Ethan and the screens as if both mattered equally. "They are not behaving like typical development patterns," Sebastian said. "You have already seen that." Ethan swallowed. He had seen it. The synchronized movement. The way they reacted at the same time. The way the signals on the screen shifted together. It was subtle, but it was there. "That does not mean they are not individuals," Ethan said. "It means you do not understand them." Sebastian's expression did not change, but something in his gaze sharpened. "Understanding is exactly what this is about," he replied. Ethan shook his head, frustration rising again. "No," he said. "This is about control." Before Sebastian could respond, one of the children made a soft sound. Then another. Ethan looked down immediately. All 4 were awake now. Their eyes were open. That alone was not unusual. But the way they looked around the room was. Their gazes moved slowly, deliberately, as if tracking something unseen. Ethan felt his breath catch. "Do you see that?" he whispered. Sebastian stepped closer, his attention fully locked onto them. "Yes," he said. No hesitation. No surprise. That made it worse. Ethan shifted slightly, trying to comfort them, but the moment he moved, all 4 reacted at once. Not crying, not reaching, just adjusting, as if they were aware of the change in position before it fully happened. The screens behind them responded instantly. The lines spiked again, sharper this time. A low tone filled the room. Not loud, but urgent. Ethan's heart began to race. "What is that?" he asked. Sebastian moved quickly to the console, his movements precise. "Their signals are aligning," he said. "It is happening again." "What is happening?" Ethan demanded. Sebastian did not answer right away. His focus remained on the data. The tone grew slightly stronger, then steadied. The lines on the screen began to match more closely than before, 4 separate signals moving in near-perfect rhythm. Ethan felt a chill run through him. "That is not normal," he said. "No," Sebastian agreed quietly. "It is not." Ethan looked down again. One of the children blinked slowly, then turned his head. The movement was small, but the others followed. Not immediately, not mechanically, but with a delay that felt intentional. As if they were responding to something shared between them. Ethan tightened his hold instinctively. "Stop watching them like that," he said. Sebastian glanced at him briefly. "Like what?" "Like they are something you built," Ethan replied. His voice was sharper now. "They are not your project." Sebastian held his gaze for a moment. Then he looked back at the children. "They are beyond anything we expected," he said. "That makes them more important, not less." Ethan shook his head. "Important to who?" Sebastian did not answer directly. "If they continue to develop this way," he said instead, "they will change everything we understand about alpha and omega compatibility." The words settled heavily. Ethan felt them sink in piece by piece. This was bigger than he thought. Bigger than just him. Bigger than just the contract. "I do not care about that," Ethan said. "I care about them." The tone in the room finally faded. The screens returned to a more stable pattern. The children relaxed slightly in his arms. The tension eased, but it did not disappear. It lingered, quiet, waiting. Sebastian stepped away from the console. This time, when he looked at Ethan, there was something different in his expression. Not just calculation, not just control, something closer to realization. "They respond to you more than anything else," he said. Ethan frowned. "Of course they do," he replied. "I am their parent." Sebastian shook his head slightly. "It is more than that," he said. "When you are calm, they stabilize. When you are not, they change." Ethan went still. He had not noticed that. Not consciously. But now that Sebastian said it, it felt true. Too true. "So what?" Ethan said slowly. "You are saying I am the reason they are like this." Sebastian's gaze did not waver. "I am saying you are the only reason they remain stable." The words landed heavily. Ethan felt them settle deep inside him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The children rested quietly again. The room returned to silence. But everything had changed. Because now, for the first time, Ethan understood something clearly. This was not just about keeping them safe. It was about keeping them under control. And he was the center of that control whether he wanted to be or not. Ethan did not speak right away. The weight of Sebastian's words settled deep, pressing against every instinct he had. The children rested quietly in his arms, their breathing soft and even. But now that he knew they were reacting to him, every small movement felt heavier, more important, more dangerous. "Then this was never about them," Ethan said slowly. His voice was calm, but there was a new edge to it. "It was about me." Sebastian did not deny it. He stepped closer, his gaze steady, measuring Ethan in a way that felt far too deliberate. "You were always a critical variable," he said. "We did not know how critical until now." Ethan let out a quiet breath. "We," he repeated. "So this is bigger than you." Sebastian's expression did not change, but the pause before his answer was enough. "Yes," he said. That single word shifted everything. Ethan felt it immediately. This was not just one man controlling a situation. This was something structured, planned, supported. "Who else knows about this?" Ethan asked. Sebastian turned slightly, his attention returning to the screens, but his answer came without hesitation. "No one outside this level of clearance has full access," he said. "They know the project exists. They do not know the outcome." Ethan frowned. "Outcome," he repeated. "You keep talking like this is finished." "It is not finished," Sebastian replied. "But it has reached a stage that cannot be hidden much longer." Ethan felt a cold tension settle in his chest. "Then what happens when they find out?" he asked. Sebastian finally looked at him again. This time, there was no distance in his gaze. Only clarity. "They will want control," he said. "Complete control." Ethan tightened his hold on the children instantly. "No," he said. The word came out without hesitation. "That is not going to happen." Sebastian studied him carefully. "You may not have a choice," he said. Ethan shook his head. No, he repeated, stronger this time. You said it yourself. They depend on me. That means I decide what happens to them. The room went quiet. Even the faint hum of the system seemed to fade for a moment. Sebastian did not respond right away. He was watching Ethan differently now. Not just evaluating, reconsidering. You are beginning to understand your position, he said at last. Ethan met his gaze directly. I understand enough, he replied. You need me. The statement hung between them. Clear. Undeniable. For the first time, the balance shifted, even if only slightly. Sebastian did not correct him. That silence confirmed it. Ethan felt something steady inside him for the first time since this began. Not fear. Not confusion. Control. Small but real. Then listen carefully, Ethan continued. If anyone tries to take them away from me, I walk out. And if I walk out, you lose whatever this is. Sebastian's eyes narrowed slightly. Not in anger. In calculation. He was weighing the risk. Measuring the truth in Ethan's words. The children stirred again, softly this time, as if sensing the shift in tension. The screens responded with small changes. Nothing dramatic, but enough to reinforce what Ethan had said. Sebastian noticed it too. You are not wrong, he admitted quietly. Ethan held his ground. Then stop treating them like something you own, he said. And stop acting like I am replaceable. Sebastian stepped closer again, but this time the movement felt different. Less dominant. More deliberate. You are not replaceable, he said. The words were clear. Direct. Ethan searched his expression for any sign of deception, but found none. That made it more complicated. Then prove it, Ethan said. Sebastian's gaze shifted briefly to the children, then back to Ethan. I can limit access, he said. Delay external involvement. Keep this contained. Ethan did not respond immediately. He considered the words carefully. It was not a promise, but it was something. And if they push? Ethan asked. Sebastian's voice lowered slightly. Then I will handle it. Ethan studied him for a moment longer. There was confidence there, control, but also something new. Pressure. Real pressure. You are not the only one in control anymore, Ethan said. Sebastian did not argue. That was answer enough. The room settled into silence again. The children rested quietly, their presence steady, their connection undeniable. Ethan adjusted his hold slightly, more aware than ever of what they represented. Not just lives, not just results, leverage. And for the first time, he understood the truth completely. This situation was no longer one-sided, because as much as Sebastian controlled the system, Ethan controlled the one thing the system could not function without. And that changed everything. Chapter 3. The one who cannot leave the silence after Ethan's words did not feel empty. Felt like a shift. Something invisible had moved, and both of them knew it. Ethan adjusted the children in his arms again. Slower this time, more aware of every small reaction. They remained calm, stable. That alone told him everything he needed to know. He was not just part of this system. He was the center of it. Then we do this my way, Ethan said quietly. His voice was controlled but firm. Sebastian did not interrupt. He waited. That, more than anything, confirmed the change. No more hidden rooms, Ethan continued. No more watching them like they are data points. If they stay here, it is as a family, not as an experiment. Sebastian's gaze remained steady. He did not agree immediately. He did not refuse either. He was thinking, calculating. You are asking for a structural change, he said at last. Ethan held his ground. I am telling you what happens next. The children stirred slightly, their movements small but synchronized in a way that still felt unnatural. The screens behind them responded with subtle shifts. The signals remained stable. That was all the confirmation Ethan needed. Sebastian noticed it too. His expression tightened just enough to reveal the pressure beneath his control. You are leveraging their stability, he said. Ethan met his gaze. No, he replied. I am protecting them. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Sebastian exhaled slowly. It was controlled but not completely steady. Very well, he said. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. We will adjust the environment. Ethan did not relax. Not yet. That is not enough, he said. Sebastian's eyes narrowed slightly. What else? Ethan hesitated for a brief second. Then he spoke. No one else comes near them without me present. Sebastian's expression shifted again. This time the calculation was sharper. That will not be easy, he said. There are protocols. Ethan did not look away. Then change them. The tension in the room rose again. Not explosive, controlled, but undeniable. The children shifted once more. This time the reaction was stronger. One of them let out a soft sound. Then another. The signals on the screen began to spike again. Faster than before. Sebastian moved instantly, his focus snapping back to the data. They are responding to the stress level, he said. Ethan tightened his hold, forcing himself to stay calm. His breathing slowed deliberately. 1 second. 2 seconds. The children's movements eased. The signals followed. The spikes softened, then stabilized. The room fell quiet again. Sebastian watched the screens for a moment longer, then turned back to Ethan. There was no doubt in his eyes now. Only confirmation. You are the stabilizing factor, he said. Ethan nodded slightly. Then act like it matters, he replied. Sebastian stepped closer, stopping just within reach. His voice lowered. You need to understand something, he said. If this expands beyond this room, beyond this level, it will not be something either of us can control. Ethan did not hesitate. Then we do not let it expand, he said. Sebastian held his gaze for a long moment. Then he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. I will contain it for as long as possible, he said. Ethan studied him carefully. That was not a promise, but it was a commitment. For now it was enough. He looked down at the children again. They were quiet, peaceful. But now he saw them differently. Not just as something he had to protect. As something that could change everything if the wrong people saw them. One of the children opened his eyes again. This time Ethan noticed it immediately. The gaze was steady, focused, not random. It lingered for a second longer than it should have. Then the child's lips moved slightly. No sound came out, but the motion was clear. Ethan's breath slowed. Something about that moment felt different. He looked up at Sebastian. Did you see that? He asked quietly. Sebastian did not answer right away. His attention was locked onto the child. Not with curiosity, with intensity. Yes, he said at last. The room remained silent, but the tension had changed again. Not fear, not control. Something else. Something waiting. Ethan looked back down. The child's eyes were still open, watching, aware in a way that should not be possible. And for the first time, Ethan understood something that went beyond contracts and control. This was no longer just about keeping them safe. It was about understanding what they were becoming, and whether anyone would be able to stop it. The room did not stay calm for long. Ethan felt it before he saw it. A subtle shift in the air. A tension that did not belong to him this time. The child in his arms who had opened his eyes remained still, but his gaze did not waver. It was fixed, focused on something beyond Ethan. Then the others followed. One by one, all 4 children became alert at the same time. Not crying, not restless, just aware. The screens behind them reacted instantly. The signals surged without warning. Sharper than before. Faster. The comm patterns shattered into chaotic spikes. A low alert tone filled the room. Louder now. Impossible to ignore. Sebastian moved immediately. This is not a normal fluctuation, he said, his voice tight for the first time. His hands moved across the console with precision, but the system did not respond the way it had before. The signals did not stabilize. They escalated. Ethan's heart began to pound. What is happening? He asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. Sebastian did not look at him. They are reacting to something external, he said. But there is no external input. That contradiction hung in the air for a split second before the lights in the room flickered. Once, then again. Ethan's breath caught. That is not possible, he said. This place is sealed. Sebastian's expression hardened. It is supposed to be. The children shifted in Ethan's arms. Not randomly, not gently. Their movements were stronger now, coordinated in a way that made his chest tighten. One of them let out a soft sound. Then another. The tones overlapped, almost forming a pattern. The screens reflected it. The signals began to sync again, but faster than before. Too fast. The alert tone rose in pitch. They are linking again, Sebastian said. But this level is beyond previous data. Ethan tightened his hold, forcing himself to stay calm. He slowed his breathing deliberately, focusing on the children. It is okay, he said quietly. I am here. For a brief moment it worked. The signals dipped slightly, but then something changed. One of the children turned his head sharply. His gaze locked onto the far wall. The others followed, all four at once. Ethan felt a cold wave move through him. There was nothing there. No movement, no sound, just a blank surface. And yet they were all looking at it. The lights flickered again. This time longer. The system glitched. Screens flashed. Data scrambled for a second before snapping back. Sebastian stopped moving, completely still. That is not a system error, he said quietly. Ethan's voice dropped. Then what is it? No one answered. Because at that exact moment, one of the children moved his lips again. This time, a faint sound escaped. Not a cry, not a random noise, a shape of a word. Too soft to fully hear, but clear enough to feel. Ethan's breath slowed. His eyes locked onto the child. And for the first time, real fear settled in. Because whatever was happening now was not something Sebastian controlled. And it was not something Ethan understood. The sound that left the child's lips did not repeat, but it did not need to. The room had already changed. Ethan felt it in the way the air settled, in the way the tension stopped climbing and instead became something steady and controlled. The children in his arms relaxed at the same time, their bodies softening as if a signal had passed between them. The screens behind him responded just as quickly. The chaotic spikes slowed. The lines began to align again, not perfectly, but enough to silence the alert tone. Sebastian did not move for several seconds. He stood still, watching the data stabilize, his expression unreadable but no longer fully controlled. They corrected it, he said quietly. Ethan looked down at the children. They did not correct anything, he replied. They chose to stop. Sebastian's gaze shifted to him. That distinction mattered. More than either of them wanted to admit. The system was no longer driving the outcome. The children were. Ethan adjusted his hold slightly, his movements calm and deliberate. He focused on his breathing, steady and even, and the children responded immediately. Their signals smoothed. Their small movements became natural again. That connection was no longer a theory. It was real, and it was stronger than anything in this room. Sebastian finally stepped away from the console. This time, there was no urgency in his movements. Only thought. If they can initiate and stop a synchronized response on their own, he said, then they are not just reacting to stimuli. They are communicating. Ethan did not look up. I already knew that, he said quietly. You just refused to see it. Sebastian did not argue. For the first time since this began, he accepted the statement without resistance. The silence that followed was different from before. Not tense. Not uncertain. Clear. The truth was no longer hidden behind data or control systems. It was right here, in Ethan's arms. For lives that were aware, connected, and capable of something no one had planned. Then this ends here, Ethan said. His voice was calm but final. Sebastian looked at him. Explain. Ethan finally met his gaze. No more experiments, he said. No more systems watching them. You said they cannot function without me. That means you cannot separate us. And if you cannot separate us, then this is no longer your project. The words settled heavily. Sebastian did not respond right away. He considered them, measuring every implication. The children remained calm. The screens reflected it. Stable, controlled, but not by the system, by Ethan. That was the difference. That was the limit. Sebastian exhaled slowly. This time there was no tension left in it. Only acceptance. Then it becomes something else, he said. Ethan nodded once. A family, he replied. Sebastian held his gaze for a long moment. Then, for the first time, he stepped back. Not retreating, not surrendering, but allowing space. Very well, he said. We end the program. The words were simple, but they carried weight far beyond this room. Ethan felt it settle. The constant pressure, the unseen control. It was gone. Not erased, but no longer dominant. He looked down at the children again. They were quiet, peaceful, normal in a way that finally felt real. One of them opened his eyes once more. This time, there was no tension in the room. No system reacting. Just a child looking up at him. Ethan let out a slow breath. For the first time since this began, he felt something steady and certain. Not fear. Not confusion. Choice. He turned toward the door. It remained closed for a brief second. Then, with a soft sound, it unlocked. Not triggered by a system. Not controlled by a command. Just open. Ethan stepped forward. The children remained calm in his arms. Behind him, Sebastian did not stop him. He did not speak. He simply watched. And this time, there was no need to follow. Because for the first time, Ethan was not trying to escape. He was choosing where to go. And nothing in that room had the power to take that choice away again.